Hard Hat's all about showing up to play hard, doing what it takes to win.
If you want to cement legacy, win another.
He's your third center.
You don't want to pump him up too much, but it's hard not to.
This is maybe the most I've ever agreed with you.
Hey, Buddy Manning here. Happy Monday morning. And we have a Monday morning edition of the Garden Report with Brian Barrett checking in from the Ringer, Off the Pike podcast, and frequent guest here on the Garden Report. And you messaged me last night, Brian. We were talking the All-NBA teams a little bit. We've obviously been talking a lot about Jaylen here on this show as he comes up on the 65-game minimum to make the All-NBA team. And as that gets closer, I think the debate becomes more relevant of whether he's actually going to make this team. So we're going to go through it. We're going to build our All-NBA teams. I think we're late enough in the season to do that. Just about 4 games left here, and plenty of names coming off the list because of that 65-game minimum. But I'd say a group of a good 20 players are in the mix here, maybe a little more even, to make a team. And first team that's a relative lock. Second team that's pretty close, but a third team that's wide open even with four games left here. So can Jaylen make it? Where do you see him standing right now?
Right now, I have him on the outside looking in, and I understand he's the second best player technically on the team that's number 2 in the Eastern Conference. But I mean, you just look at some of the numbers, Bobby. He's 158th in 3-point percentage. He's 70th in 2-point percentage, and he's 31st in points per game. And I actually think that playing through this knee situation, and I know he needs to get to the 65, is actually hurting his numbers in terms of the raw numbers. And we're looking at the points. So I just really look at it now, and I don't think that, I mean, he has a case, but I think there's guys that are going to make that third team that have a better case. So that's why I question the decision to continue to try to play through this, because if you're not a lock to make one of these teams, I would prefer Jaylen to rest this thing up. Now, maybe his argument is, hey, this is something that I'm going to have to deal with in the playoffs, so I got to learn how to play through it. But I got to say, he doesn't look right physically right now. And he's comparing him. He's doing the thing about comparing his game to looking at Paul Pierce film and talking about he hasn't had the same level of athleticism. I'm like, whoa, hold on. Jaylen Brown, what makes him special is he's one of the best athletes in the NBA. So I don't know. Am I crazy to be a little bit nervous entering the postseason, hearing Jaylen make comments like that?
No, just because if he's not the same guy, I think it's going to be a nightly question what you're getting from him. And that's what it's been to this point, right? And it's interesting because he was efficient again last night. You've talked about how the shooting's actually gotten better during this injury stretch here, and that's weird too. And it does feel, as he's talked about, like he's trying to go at the game from more of a skill standpoint than a athleticism standpoint, trying to blow by guys and dunk and all the stuff we're used to seeing him do. So I commend him for that. I did think there was some legitimacy to his point about trying to learn how to play through it because he's going to have to play through it anyway here. But there also is a balance of rest. And if you look going weeks back to when he first missed the 3 games there and had the back spasm or he had to leave that game, if he just rested from that point on, even through the play-in week, there wouldn't even be a question about All-NBA at this point, and he would have had that much more rest going into the playoffs. And I don't know if what he's dealing with completely heals at that point, but he definitely isn't putting as much of a load on it, as much pressure as he has here. You saw him fall a couple of times last night, and that's always scary. So there's so much that goes into this, and I feel like this story is almost becoming like the Tatum Olympic one where we just have nothing else to talk about. So we're just going to talk about this for the next 2-3 weeks before the playoffs actually start here. But I don't mind him going for the All-NBA just because we've seen him 2-3 times now look like he's able to perform through this. He had 30 points against the Suns, the other great game in Phoenix. A handful here where he's looked like his normal self as far as his productivity goes. But then you have the night like yesterday where he just isn't super involved. He's just not able to generate a ton of momentum in the game. And the weird thing about those nights is it's not like he's struggling. It's just that he's not shooting a lot. It's that he's not super involved. And The one thing that really stood out to me that he mentioned is just how much fewer transition opportunities he's taken this season, and that shows out in the numbers. He was one of the league leaders in transition possessions last year, and that's down by like 1.1 the last time I looked.
Yeah, well, and last year post All-Star break, just raw fast break numbers, he was number one in the NBA. And
Yeah.
so that's something, of course, that he can take advantage of. I mean, it's a credit to the Celtics that they can just be so efficient in the half court that they're basically, at last glance, they're still 30th in fast break points per game, yet they're still one of the most efficient offenses in the league. But I look at Jaylen and I felt like his case last year was actually stronger. I truly believe he should have made All NBA last season. I did this whole thing where if you look at the amount of wins they had, for them not to have two All NBA guys, it was almost like historic. You had to go back to like Dirk's MVP season, one of Harden's MVP seasons for teams that have won that many games and only gotten one All NBA guy. But we could look up in a week and a half from now when the playoffs get underway and it's like, oh, Jaylen looks spry again. Jaylen looks athletic again. But what I've seen recently from Jaylen on the court, it's a little scary. Now, the good thing is you alluded to, like, his 2-point shooting has been really good over the past couple of games. And that's something that he was near 60% in the playoffs last season. He was awesome. One of the best high volume 2-point shooters in the league during that playoff run last year. So that's one good thing to take away from this. But so much of their defense has been built on Jaylen sort of being the stopper, right? We think back to the finals last year, guarding a guy like Luka. We've seen on multiple occasions this year, Jaylen taking on the opponent's best player. And I think Jaylen's strength as a defensive player is his one-on-one defense, his on-ball defense, not his off-ball defense, where I think at times he can doze off a little bit, right, and get backdoor cut or something along those lines. So
That was the worry last night. He was a non-factor defensively, and was that because they're up 20 against the Wizards and the game means nothing, or because he couldn't move? That was tough to tell last night.
Yeah, and like the whole minutes thing is just weird too, right? Because it's like, all right, he starts the game, he comes out, and then when did they put him back in the second quarter? It was like under the 6-minute mark, right? It's almost like, all right, if you're going to play that few minutes, why not just take the night off? And I get it, it's about this whole 65 game thing, but what happens if he doesn't get to the 65 games and he doesn't look like himself in the postseason? I feel like he's really opening himself up to criticism when it comes to that.
Well, it's going to be interesting here because they got a back-to-back Tuesday, Wednesday, big travel game on the second half going down to Orlando, very physical team. So I would guess that's going to be the night he gets off if 65 is what they're working toward here. But then you are going to have this weird situation. And again, I don't mind it. I don't think it would be super abnormal. We've seen players come out of games pretty quickly late in the year just to get to games played minimums. But if the whole team's resting those Charlotte games Friday and Sunday, especially the Sunday one, and he's just out there for 15 minutes, it's going to be so obvious what's going on. And again, I won't care because I think it's fine for him to go for this as long as it's not risking anything. But I'm wondering how the fan base is going to feel watching him go out there and just play those 15 minutes if that's what's going to happen here. And to me, like I hate the rule, now that I see it in action, and we saw it with Halliburton last year. We've seen it decide guys all NBA incentives, going into their extensions, and it leaves you with no choice but to push through stuff if you're trying to go for that. And I guess if it's just some pain, that's what they wanted to do with this rule is make you play rather than sit out through a little pain. But if you're risking something because you want to get to this award, and it is a big deal. Like when we look back on guys' careers, you look at all NBAs, and he just missed it last year, as you mentioned. He'll have just missed it this year by a couple games if he is in line to make it and is a game or two short of the 65. And that's tough because there's really no leeway with this thing. It's a pretty arbitrary number. And if you play 64, you're out. And I know there's like a season-ending injury provision there, and you can play 15 minutes in 2 games. So it's a pretty hard line at 65. And again, this is just me guessing this, and I know he said no when he got asked. But if that wasn't a thing, I don't think we'd be seeing him in as many games as we have here. But who knows?
No, I think it's an absolute joke, the 65 game threshold, right? I mean, you mentioned the Halliburton thing. The guy was literally never right again after he came back early, and it was just so he could get that Supermax contract. And then again, once you get into the postseason against the Celtics, he goes down again with the injury, and he's done after that series. And I know you say, well, it's not the exact same injury. All this stuff is connected because you're overcompensating when you come back from an injury.
That's the worry with Jaylen too, right?
Yeah, like because remember, it's the knee, and it's the back. Oh, then it's the knee again. It's like, oh yeah, well, probably all these things run into each other in some way, shape, or form. But the other thing I just mentioned in terms of like Adam Silver coming up with this rule, the 65 game threshold, I understand what they were trying to do to get guys on the court more, but I just feel like he overthinks everything now, right? Like he gets the TV
Yeah.
deals, which is great, but like we're talking about a league in Europe, like worry about other things, man. Like the 65 game threshold has been bad for the league, right? And even like say Jaylen gets to the 65 game threshold, it's going to be a sham for him to get there, right? He's going to be going out there and getting to those 15 minutes. And if he plays in those Charlotte games and then coming out of the game, is that what we want for the league? It just seems to me like they've overthought everything. I even go back to the CBA, right? I know this isn't just Adam Silver, but so they try to make this rule basically so teams can't be the Clippers and the Warriors where they're spending like crazy. But then you don't realize what you've done is you actually penalize teams that are well run. Like the Celtics are going to be the team that gets, and I'm not trying to sound like a homer here, but the Celtics are going to get punished. They're going to get punished more than any other team in the league, right? Because they nailed the Jason Tatum pick. They nailed the Jaylen Brown pick. The Kristaps Porzingis trade was awesome. The Derek White trade was awesome. When, by the way, people were criticizing that move at the time for the Celtics. The Drew Holiday trade, okay, that one's kind of obvious, but still, you had to execute the deal. And then you've drafted well around that. So now, like Sam Hauser in a couple of years ago, I don't want to get Celtics fans upset, but he's not going to be on the team because it's going to be way too expensive. The good thing is Baylor Shireman looks like eventually he's going to be a key rotation guy for you down the road here. But it just feels like that's another rule where they try to punish the Clippers and the Warriors, and they're actually going to punish a team that could possibly go on a dynastic run.
Yeah, and the benefit to paying Jaylen $50 million was that's your edge over other teams keeping him. And now you have a rule where paying $50 million hurts you from a tax standpoint, from a second apron standpoint. So those
And
kind
if
of
a
work
team,
against each other when you're building.
yeah,
And I know Bill said this forever, right? There needs to be a break on the luxury tax for guys you draft. I think that's a good solution to some of this stuff.
well, and Bobby, if you want to give your player a supermax, why shouldn't you just be able to give your player a supermax, right? Where it's like
Right.
Halliburton last year had to get to the 65 games. You think the Pacers would have been like, hey, you know what? If he actually didn't make All-NBA, we wouldn't have given him the supermax. Like if they had the ability just to give him the supermax, they would have given him the supermax because he's one of the best point guards in the league. So I don't
Or
understand
Jaylen a
why.
couple of years ago. I mean, the Celtics were so
Yeah,
fortunate he made that in that year, and there were injuries and everything else that went into that, and that allowed them to pay the $50 million. But they might have done that anyway if they had the choice, like you said there. Want to shout out real quick here, our good friends over at Game Time, who have your tickets at Fenway. I was over at Fenway yesterday. I missed the end because I had to get over the Garden, but an awesome Red Sox game, and all their games have been pretty fun so far as they get going on the Boston side of their schedule. And Game Time has your tickets. There's a lot going on at the Garden with the Celtics this spring as well. Unfortunately, the Bruins aren't going to be there. I heard that they might be removing the ice or something like that. And I haven't heard about that, Brian, in a long time, obviously, because the Bruins haven't been in the playoffs or haven't been out of the playoffs very much here. But Celtics are heading to the playoffs. You got the Red Sox going right now, and Game Time has your tickets. Curation makes it easy to figure out and save on which sports, concerts, comedy, theater you want to go to. And they have all of that over on Game Time and more. You get your seat views, a panoramic view, and that's so crucial for Fenway because you know you're going to have the poles in the way and all that. And the lowest price guarantee, or they'll credit you 110% of the difference. And your purchase is covered by the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So go over there, download the app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase over on Game Time. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time, love them. Concerts especially, and Red Sox tickets. It's a great app to see where you're going to be sitting especially, so go check them out. Let's get into our teams, Brian. The first four are easy here, the four MVP candidates. And the two marquee ones are going to be what it comes down to. But the four guys who have separated themselves all year, obviously Jokic, Shea, Tatum, as well as Giannis. And Tatum's going to make his X numbers in a row here of all NBA first teams, which is kind of crazy. He's had a phenomenal year. He got to the 65 games pretty smoothly, and this will be his 4th All-NBA team in a row, first team. So the final spot's the interesting one. I feel like it's a relative lock that it's going to be Mitchell, and I would lean in that direction too. And, we're going to go back and forth a little bit here on winning versus stats and productivity and your finish too. I know you're looking at some of the second half stats with these guys. But I think Mitchell has done enough, even with talent off late here, and that leading to some Cavs losses down the stretch. By the way, Cavs still haven't clinched the 1 seed, which is pretty wild with 4 games to go here. I'm still keeping Mitchell on there, but I know you had someone different to round out the first team.
Yeah, their shooting has come crashing down lately as we get ready here, getting closer to the playoffs. Now, I don't know if that means anything or nothing, but the way that they started the season and really through the All-Star break, their shooting numbers were just ridiculous. And you're looking at their career numbers. Mitchell's like never been a great 3-point shooter throughout his career. You look at his numbers, he's been like an average guy. And look, his attempts are difficult, but you thought that'd come down a little bit. The one that I'm surprised with is Garland. Second half of the season, he's really taken himself off all NBA ballots because he's been one of the worst shooters in the league post All-Star break, really. I put Edwards over Mitchell just because it's almost 3 more points per game. He's 4th in scoring. He's 2nd in made threes per game. That was the big thing for him this year, behind only Steph Curry. He's hitting 4 threes per game, which is just insane. And I feel like he's
Kind of
just
like Tatum now.
Yeah, it's wild. And
Except
I feel
he's
like
making them.
Yeah, he just has to carry so much of that offensive load for Minnesota. And I do think that he's the superior defensive player to Donovan Mitchell as well. So I had Mitchell on my second team. I was figuring out which one I wanted to put on the first team. I just think Edwards is a better player. So I'm going to put Edwards even though Donovan Mitchell, Celtics fans are like, what are you talking about? Donovan Mitchell scores more points than Michael Jordan did against the Celtics on a per game basis, right? I mean, it's amazing how the Celtics have no answer for that guy whatsoever. But I'm going to go with Edwards on my first team over Mitchell.
Yeah, and Edwards is a pretty easy choice to lead off the second team if you don't have him on the first one, and that's, of course, what I did here. Mitchell with 24, 4, and 5 on 44 and 37. So shooting has come down pretty far to below the last 2 years. And he was All-NBA second team 2 years ago. Didn't make a team last year, I believe, because of the games thing. So he'll be first or second team. And then you get to Cade, who I felt like was a trade-off for the first team in my mind, just because of the productivity and the weight he's carried in Detroit and the amazing season Detroit's had. I'm a huge Cade guy, Brian, so I'm probably a little biased here, but he was a pretty easy choice for second team for me with 26, 6, and 9 top 5 assist guy this year on a team that added some shooting, but still, it's not the most dynamic offensive team you're ever going to see. And he has 9 assists a game, which is pretty crazy to me. 46 from the field, 35 from 3 isn't amazing. But I think he's just been phenomenal this year. And that team's been great to watch. Last couple of games here, 25, 9, and 4, 35, 7, and 6, 25, 12, and 11 against the Heat in a win a couple of games ago. And I think they're the first team in NBA history to triple their wins over the previous year. So I have Cade here. Who was next up after Mitchell on your second team?
So on my second team, I had Brunson on there after Donovan Mitchell because I know that
he's going to be interesting because he's still got to get to 65, but it looks like he's going to do it here.
Yeah, I think he's going to get there. You look at his numbers, he's 7th in the league in scoring at 26.1 per game. He's at 7.4 assists, which is 8th. And this is still because of the work that he did earlier in the season before he went down with the injury. He's the reason they're the 3 seed, right? Like, if he doesn't get out to that outstanding start, there's no chance that they're the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference with the way that the Pacers have come on in the second half of the season. And to your point, what the Pistons have been able to do. So I put Brunson on the second team along with Mitchell. I have another guard, by the way, on my second team as well. So I had 3 guards on the second team. Are you sure it's Cade Cunningham, not Wade Cunningham? Did you see that, Stephen A. Smith?
No. Is that what he said?
It said Walter Clayton reminds him of Pistons star Wade Cunningham. And first of all,
he needs a week off, man.
Well, like, the W is not near the C if you look at your phone or your keyboard, right? And by the way, Wade Cunningham is like an IndyCar driver. So people are like tweeting out pictures of the IndyCar driver. And Walter Clayton, who's going to play in the national championship later on tonight, He literally plays nothing like Cade Cunningham. Those guys' games cannot be more different. Like Clayton's an awesome player. He's a shooter. He's like a lethal scorer. Cade Cunningham's like sort of a version of, not as good, but sort of a version of Luka, right? Like their games are not similar at all. Cade Cunningham's like a rugged physical player, and that's not what Walter Clayton is.
I had Brunson as well. I think he's going to get there. Awesome season from him, and they're going to be the third team pretty definitively in the East here. 7 assists per game, a career high for him as well. And we'll see how he closes down the stretch here. But I think the efficiency and the numbers and all that are pretty much making him a lock. He was 5th in MVP last year, by the way. What a run he's been on for 3 seasons. We both had Mobley, which I don't think needs too much of an explanation there. He's going to be in the Defensive Player of the Year mix. One of the best turnarounds, or I'd say most improved players in the league this year, 19, 9, and 3. With just under 2 blocks, 56 from the field, 37 from 3-on-3 attempts is pretty crazy too for him, given where his shooting was just 2 years ago. So he's been awesome. I think he's a relative lock for second team based on what he's done, what the Cavs have done this year. And then I know we both had LeBron, I believe, right?
Yeah, the offensive numbers are just undeniable what he's been able to do this
And
season.
he's carried them at times.
Yeah, even if he's at this point in his career, we were talking about it before he came on, he's become David Ortiz or Rafael Devers, right? He's a DH. He doesn't play defense. Now maybe he'll turn it up in the postseason, but I don't blame him, man. The dude's 40 years old. Like you can't be given maximum effort on the defensive end and the offensive end. He's 24 and a half, 8.4 assists, 7.9 rebounds. So I feel like, and especially the way that the Lakers have played, and obviously Luka's a large part of this as well, but LeBron has to be on the second team to me with the numbers that he's been able to put up. I still can't believe he's doing it at this age. I mean, we just watch Ovechkin break the record, Wayne Gretzky's record, and LeBron broke Kareem's record. It feels like, what was that, a year and a half ago now? Like it's been a while since he broke that record.
Yeah, and he takes those Tatum threes too. We were talking about this the other night on one of the shows. I know he's not taking 10 a game like Tatum, but 6 a game, 38, and he takes difficult ones. Obviously, the pressure's on him defensively. The shot making for him is ridiculous, and you'll see him hit a tough baseline jumper every night, some long threes. He's always taking those heat checks. So the transformation in his game too is really something, and I'm interested to see what they're going to do in the playoffs. I'm not a strong believer in them for health reasons as well as defensive ones. And they've had a great defense at times this year too, which is kind of blowing my mind given what he and Luke are at this point in their careers on that end. So I'll be interested to see what they do, but LeBron has to be on second or third, depending on how you feel about the defense aspect of that one. But like you, I'll bump him up to second on the numbers there. So mine was Cade, Edwards, Brunson, Mobley, LeBron, and yours was Edwards, Brunson, Mobley, LeBron, and
I put Steph in there. Just he's
okay.
number 1 in the league, not shockingly, and 3-pointers made per game. And he's doing it at 39.7%. And the offense is 13.2 points per 100 better when he's on the court via cleaning the glass. That's in the 99th percentile. Steph Curry's always been like, him and Jokic have been the kings of the on-off numbers. And without Steph, that off. And I know they have Butler. And look, I'm praising Steph after maybe the worst game he's played in years, where he had 3 points against the Rockets, and he got into it with Ime last night during that game. But Curry's he's basically a top 10 offense just by stepping on the court. And most of the time he's a top 3 offense by stepping on the court, just because of the gravity that he's able to sort of manipulate the defense. Even when he's off the ball, you'll see somebody gets a wide open dunk because 2 guys go with Curry. So I put Curry on my second team.
Curry's a lock for sure. I got him on third. Durant would probably be a lock here, and I think we're going to have to bump him off, even though I think technically there's a chance if he comes back pretty much right now that he could get to those 65 games. But he hasn't even gotten on the court for on-court work yet, the last I heard, when the Suns were in here a couple of days ago. So I'm assuming we're not going to see him before the end of the regular season, so Durant will not qualify if that's the case. And he had the numbers for sure. He's going to be a relative lock for that third team, I'd say here. So I have Curry on that third team to start it off. Who would you start with here on the third team?
So I put Cade Cunningham on the third team.
All right,
obviously,
we hit him.
Yeah, you had him on the second team. I put him. He was the first guy that I put on the third team.
Okay, and who would you go to next?
I put Halliburton on this because you look at Halliburton and he had a slow start to the season, but still he's third in the league in assists per game. The offense is 7.2 points per 100 better. That's in the 93rd percentile via cleaning the glass when he's on the floor. And he's been unbelievable post All-Star break. 11.3 assists per game, which is the second most behind Trae Young. He's 53.8% from the floor, and he's 44.5% from deep on 7.2 attempts. He's had some signature games. He also could add another signature game if Rick Carlisle didn't decide not to put him on the floor for their final offensive possession against the Lakers about 2 weeks ago. I was watching that game. But I think Halliburton's been awesome in the second half of the season. He's another guy that drives elite level offense. So I put him on my third team.
That's crazy, the 11, because that's where he was before, the shooting going way up. Like, that's the guy who was a lock for one of these teams just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, he's back to who he was prior to the injury last year. That's how good he's been. And I don't know how you feel about this, Bobby. I'm glad, like, the way that the bracket is breaking for the Celtics. I want, not that I don't think they'd beat the Pacers, but I don't want to play the Pacers. That was an annoying series. Even though it was a sweep, 3 of those games were close, and that half-court offense, it's just difficult to defend. I mean, they're, for lack of a better term, it's like chaotic. They're just like all over the place. They move in the half court. I'm talking about like getting out in transition. Their half court offense is very difficult to keep up with because they just move so fast. So if you can avoid them in the playoffs, I'd love to do that. And clearly, I think the Celtics are on the right side here, where if you look at it, the Cavs may have to play the Pacers in the second round. That's not a fun series.
Pacers beat the Cavs in 3 out of the 4. Oh, no, one of those is preseason. Pacers beat the Cavs in 2 out of the 3 this regular season. 108-93, 121-116, and then Cavs got the last one in January, 127-117. So they're probably going to play the Bucks first round if the Bucks stay up at 5, and we saw that last year. And Bucks obviously missing Lillard right now. We'll see if he comes back, but that was what happened last year. First round they beat the Bucks because the Bucks were banged up. Second round, they got through the Knicks, who obviously had no one left at that point. So we'll see how healthy the Cavs are in second round, if that's going to be the matchup. But it definitely, I had that thought for the first time last night. Like, are the Pacers and Celtics on the East Finals collision course again here? And we'll see what happens there. But they definitely look like that team from last year. And if Halliburton's that guy again, we'll see. I don't think that's what's going to happen here, but it's definitely growing as a possibility. I didn't have Halliburton just because of the start. I did have Jackson, who I'm not the biggest fan of, and the fouling and all that, but he's going to be in that defensive player of the year mix out there in Memphis. And watching him this year, he's got this amazing post-hook game where he can just go through guys in the low block and pour in floater after floater after floater. Every time I watched him this year, he was really impressive. 22-6, 2 assists, a steal a game, and a block per game, 37 from 3, which is just short of a career high for him on 5 attempts, and 49 from the field is his best since his rookie season. So I think he's a relative lock to be on here, even though the Grizzlies have tailed way off in the second half.
Yeah, I keep going back and forth because on the last spot between him and Jalen Williams, because Jalen Williams has been obviously on the best team in the NBA, and because Chet's been dealing with these injuries, you would say he's the second best player on the team in terms of the length of the season, but he's just not a very efficient player. And I get it's because the team is so good and he plays some of the minutes without SGA, but all the numbers are worse when he's on the floor. They're still like elite level numbers, but I don't know. I just feel like Jackson's box score numbers were more impressive to me. And Jackson, I feel like, has such an impact for that team defensively. Now, that team is free falling, but if you look at one player on Memphis, like, he's clearly going to be the representative, and all these teams are bunched up in the Western Conference. So I went with Jackson as my last spot. I have 3 bigs for my final 3 spots, and I had Jackson as one of them.
Is the other one Towns?
Yeah, I put Towns in there. Towns' numbers are just undeniable. Now, this is what I'll say. Like, he's shooting the 3 unbelievably well. He's at, 24.3 per game, 12.8 rebounds per game, second in the league. This does not mean that I believe in Karl Anthony Towns as a postseason player. This is a regular season award. We know what the Celtics are going to be able to do if they play the Knicks in the playoffs. They are going to hunt him. They are going to go after him. Maybe we even see that a little bit on Tuesday night. But for what he's done there during the regular season, I think it's difficult to keep him off one of the 15 spots when he's putting up 24 and almost 13 per game.
That leaves us with two. We both had Jackson. We both had Towns. Can Jaylen have a case for either one of these? We'll talk about in just a second here, but want to shout out Prize Picks real quick. Head over to Prize Picks. Again, we got baseball going on right now, so you can build your team with baseball players. Pick 2 players, pick more or less on their stat projections here, and you have your daily fantasy team. It's great for debating with friends, seeing what guys are going to do every night. I like going over there and seeing what they're expecting from a points standpoint with Tatum, or what they're expecting Pritchard to do off the bench on any given night. So that's what I always like going over there for, and building a team. From time to time, you can combine teams as well, and you're going to have all kinds of cool stuff coming up here as different sports get going again. The women are going to be playing again soon, basketball here, and just a lot of great stuff into the summer, and baseball, especially the big thing going on right now is their season gets going again. Strikeouts, RBI, first inning runs. Take your pick of more or less for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash today. Best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states. And it's really easy to use, so accessible. They've made daily fantasy sports accessible to all here. Basketball, hockey, esports, and much more. They invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out. Even if your lineup isn't perfect, you can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And they put their members first. The second half of basketball season's here, and the push to the playoffs is heating up on Prize Picks, the best place to cash in on your favorite sports. Shohei Ohtani, more or less than 1 home run this week. Juan Soto, more than 1 hit. Again, cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this baseball season, and get 50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup with the code CLNS. Get 50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup with CLNS. Prize Picks, run your game. So, final 2 spots here, and I'll throw out the names that are in the mix as we look at it here. We got Devin Booker. We got Jalen Williams from the Thunder, that awesome Thunder team that's been, I'd say, the best regular season team in the league this year out of all the ones I've watched. Trae Young's always in the mix from a statistical standpoint. You got Garland, who, as you mentioned, is tailed way off in the second half. You have Alperen Şengün, who has been a major part of that awesome Rockets team that I think is going to finish second in the West, which is out of this world. You got Siakam in the mix here. You got Tyler Hero, who's an all-star and has carried the Heat at times. I'm probably missing a couple names there. And again, a lot of guys have been ruled ineligible just because of the games played thing here. But those were the guys in the mix for me. Who's the first of the final 2 here? And, of course, Jaylen as well.
Well, I'm actually surprised that you didn't have Cornette, Bobby.
If there was a 4th team, he would be on there.
He's been so good. I mean,
what do you have, 13 and 14 last night?
Yeah, he's incredible, man. It's wild in a league where he came in.
I didn't expect Cornette to come up in our All-NBA show.
Yeah. But it's just funny to me, like, so all these guys are trying to get him to be stretch bigs, right? And he was a stretch big when he was coming into the league. And now he's like the opposite of a stretch big, where he just rolls, he dunks, he's a phenomenal lob catcher. He's one of the best screeners in the league. And I know that's boring, but he's a real quality player, and good for him. Like, he's about to get paid in the summertime after entering this contract year again. So to answer your question, though, I couldn't put Booker on the team just because that Phoenix Suns thing is just such a disaster. I just can't reward a guy like Devin Booker for having these big games down the stretch of the season here, especially, too, he had a miserable
I will say
start.
there were some stat padding elements to his finish in Boston on Friday when I saw him just stepping into those 10-footers.
Oh, well, this is also a guy that went for 70 in a game that his team lost, and they took a picture. Okay, so that's part of the Devin Booker experience. But my final spot,
I had Booker on there.
It's difficult to, like, Jaylen Brown was the finals, and I know it doesn't count. He's the finals MVP, and he may not make an All-NBA team, which is just crazy to think about. But I ran through some of the efficiency stuff earlier. I don't think that he's going to get it because of some of that stuff. I went with Şengün because I know Houston's known for its defense, right? But right now, he's their best offensive player. He's 19.2 a game. He's 10.4 rebounds per game, which is 9th, and he's 4.9 assists per game. Like that team really at times can struggle to score when he's not on the floor. Like they have so many great athletes defensively, Amen Thompson being the best of that group. But without him, like there's games where Ime will just bench Jalen Green for the final 5 minutes of a game. He did it last week, just if Jalen Green, if he's not getting it from him. And we really seen that with Şengün. So I went with Şengün for that final spot. And I mentioned the
When
Jalen
we talked
Williams
it out,
earlier.
that's the one I would probably change because it feels like someone needs to be there for the Rockets, given the season they've had. Not that it's all about winning here on this thing, but it's always tough. You train off the stats, and Booker does have some good stat lines here. The three is tailed off, but 26, 4, and 7. That was a tough one for me, but Şengün's a really good choice there. And then we go down the final spot, and for me, it's really hard to hold Jalen Williams out given what the Thunder have done this year. But who did you have for the final spot?
Yeah, so my final spot, I think I touched them all. So I had Cade, Halliburton, Towns, Jaren Jackson, and Şengün. That was my third team. So I didn't have Jalen Williams.
Okay. So what was your final third team for you?
Cade, Halliburton, Karl Anthony Towns, Jaren Jackson, and Şengün.
Okay. So the
So I
difference
went with
for
three
us.
bigs. I kind of feel bad that I have two Knicks and I only have one Thunder. Honestly, if Chet played the whole season, Chet would be on that just because I feel like he's such a difference maker for them. But because I'm not as impressed with Jalen Williams, and look, he's got a lot to prove in this postseason run for them after and look, it was his second year last year, but he really struggled. But I don't know. If I wasn't going to put Jaylen Brown in, I had a real difficult time putting Jalen Williams on it.
Jalen Williams' numbers are really good. The efficiency, too, for him, I think, has been pretty strong this year. And he's playing that Jaylen Brown role effectively for the Thunder, like the second scorer, second ball handler. I know he's missed a little bit of time here, so he's coming in just over that 65, but 21, 5, 5, 48, 37. In terms of Jaylen Brown's case, I feel like this is the guy who's probably really blocking him here because Hero, the Heat have been dreadful. That's going to be a tough case to make. Trey, same thing, even with the big stats out there. So when you're looking at some of these other candidates,
it is crazy though. It is crazy and I'm not arguing for him to make the team, but it is crazy how much Trey has to carry that team. And maybe like when you're Atlanta, that's the only way you can run your team, right? Like Trey has to be that dominant. You know what I mean? So it's almost like in some ways a blessing and a curse the way that he plays because you never winning anything significantly with him. Although I will say, like that playoff series a couple of years ago, I did earn some respect for him. I mean, he was really good in a couple of those games.
It feels like they're on a collision course again. So as we stack it up here, how many spots would you say Jalen's outside of All-NBA as you put the names together here?
I look at it,
1,
I'd probably
2,
say
3.
He's like 16 or 17th on the list, right?
That's
Like,
tough because he was 16th last year, I believe, right behind Booker.
yeah. The one thing I'll say about Jalen Williams too is as being like that secondary guy. Have you seen the numbers when he's on and Shea's off? So Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, yeah, Shea on, Jalen off on offense. They have a 128.1 offensive rating. If you have Jalen on and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander off, drops to a 112.6. So I think that's maybe the biggest question for the Thunder. Not that, I mean, Shea's going to play 40 plus minutes a game in the playoffs, but I think that's the biggest question. Is he legitimate, bona fide? Because like, even if you say Chet is their second best player, which I think he is going to be their second best player in the playoffs, it's not like you're creating offense from him. So can somebody else besides Shea create offense for them in the playoffs? And look, just like the Cavaliers, we've seen them have some tough losses recently. Like they lost to Sacramento on Sunday night. OKC lost to the Lakers. The Lakers really took it to them.
It's going to be interesting. I felt like the Thunder have been a slam dunk here, but the West is so tough. It is difficult to say that with some of the matchups and the way this is going to shake out. Minnesota, still a major problem with Edwards, as you mentioned, and how hot they've gotten late in the year. And Denver's always tough. And the Lakers are just such a wild card here because when they get going, they really are something. And I got to give Reddit credit for how disciplined he's made that team, especially on the defensive end. He's definitely probably a top 3 coach of the year candidate for me, the way it's gone for him out there alongside Bickerstaff and Atkinson, of course, in Cleveland there. So we'll see how this shakes out. The on-off number is really good for Jalen too this year, Jaylen Brown. when Tatum's been off the floor. So I think that's another feather in his cap. And we'll see what's going to happen here. If he can get to 65, I think he at least makes it interesting. And voters do give a lot of credit to the winning. And Celtics, again, one of the best teams in the league this year. And there will be a case for them to have two candidates. So if he can make this thing, it's going to be a real achievement here. And I'll credit him because it was an uphill climb with the games played and obviously some of the performances he's had to piece together down the stretch here. But thanks for talking it through here, Brian Barrett. Check out the Off the Pike podcast. Plenty of Red Sox going on right now as their season gets started, and then the Celtics playoff push gets started just about a week from this weekend, I want to say. So we're just under 2 weeks from Celtics playoff games here. Thanks, Brian, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, Bobby.